You walk into a room and say something true, not provocative, not arrogant, just accurate, precise. You've thought about it, and what you said reflects that thought. And the room shifts not because you were wrong, but because you were clear. And clarity in certain rooms is a form of violence. Someone laughs a little too quickly. Someone changes the subject. Someone finds a flaw in your tone rather than your point. And if you're perceptive, which you are, or you wouldn't be watching this, you notice all of it. You notice the subtle reorganization of energy in the room, the micro expressions, the deflection dressed as humor. You've seen this before. Maybe in a meeting, maybe at a family dinner, maybe in school. Years ago, when you gave an answer that was simply better, and the teacher moved on a little too fast, as if your correctness was socially inconvenient. Here's what most people never realize. That friction isn't random. It isn't bad luck. It isn't just some people being difficult. It is a pattern. And it is ancient. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why that pattern exists. Why mediocre minds don't just fail to appreciate intelligence, they target it systematically, often without knowing why. And I'm going to show you the mechanism behind it through the lens of one of the most uncomfortable philosophers who ever lived. Arthur Schopenhauer did not believe in comfortable truths. He believed that most human behavior, the socializing, the conforming, the endless performance of normalcy, was driven not by reason or goodwill but by will. A blind, irrational, relentless force that pushes organisms to survive, to dominate, to protect their place in the hierarchy. And that force does not stop when the hierarchy is social rather than physical. Schopenhauer wrote that the will does not want what is good. It wants what continues, and anything that threatens its continuation will be resisted, fiercely, instinctively, and often irrationally. This video is not about hating people who seem less intelligent. This is not a superiority exercise. If you came here for validation of contempt, you're in the wrong place. This is pattern recognition because here's what actually happens. When someone with genuine intelligence enters a social system built on comfortable mediocrity, they don't just exist there, they disturb it. Not by trying to, simply by being, by asking the questions no one asked, by not laughing at the joke that wasn't funny, by solving the problem everyone had agreed was unsolvable, by seeing what others had quietly decided not to see. And the system responds, not because it's evil, but because systems, human systems especially, are allergic to disruption. This isn't cynicism, it's structure. What I'm going to walk you through is the mechanism, the actual architecture of why this happens, why it keeps happening, and what you can do about it, not with anger, but with precision. Chapter 1. Intelligence feels like an accusation. Here's the first reason. Intelligence at its core a form of seeing. It sees through performance. It sees through rationalizations. It sees the gap between what someone says and what they mean, between what a group believes and what the evidence actually supports. And here is the thing about being seen. It is not always welcome. When you are in a room with someone who sees clearly, and you have been operating on illusions, illusions about your competence, your kindness, your logic, your worth. Their presence alone becomes a mirror. You don't need them to say anything, you just feel it. The uncomfortable sensation that something about you has been quietly clocked. Schopenhauer understood this. He wrote that most people live in a fog of representation, a comfortable layer of appearance, story, and social agreement that cushions the rawness of reality. And the intelligent person, by nature, not by choice, tears small holes in that fog. Think about the workplace. You've seen this. The employee who solves the problem faster than the manager expected, not to show off, just because the solution was there. And the manager, instead of gratitude, responds with subtle hostility, an unfair review, A dismissed idea, a sudden interest in finding flaws in the employee's attitude. The employee didn't insult the manager. Their competence did. This is the first mechanism. Intelligence as implicit accusation. The intelligent person's clarity becomes, to an insecure mind, a verdict, a judgment rendered not with words but with contrast. And here is the brutal part. The mediocre mind rarely knows this is happening. It doesn't sit down and think, this person makes me feel inferior, so I will undermine them. It simply feels a vague discomfort around the intelligent person and begins, unconsciously, smoothly, to find reasons to dismiss them. The logic is invented after the emotion. The criticism comes first. The justification follows. Most people experience this and wonder what they did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You just made the invisible visible. Chapter 2. The herd and its enforcers. Here's the second reason. And this one cuts deeper. Schopenhauer, and later Nietzsche, who extended his thinking, observed something uncomfortable about human social groups. They do not primarily value truth or excellence. They value cohesion, the maintenance of shared reality, the comfort of unanimous agreement. The group, the herd, does not ask, is this person correct? It asks, is this person one of us? And intelligence disrupts oneness. It introduces asymmetry. It creates the uncomfortable situation where one person knows something others don't, sees something others haven't, or refuses to pretend to believe something everyone else has agreed to believe. This makes the intelligent person, in the eyes of the herd, not an asset, a variable, a source of unpredictability. And herds do not like variables. Every social group has enforcers, not formal ones, not people with titles, informal ones. The person who changes the subject when the conversation gets too real. The person who reminds everyone to not take things so seriously. The person who deploys humor as a sedative every time genuine depth threatens to surface. The person who, when you make a sharp observation, immediately looks around the room to gauge the reaction before deciding whether to agree with you. These people are not villains, they are regulators. They maintain the temperature of the group. And when the intelligent person raises the temperature, by introducing a real idea, an inconvenient truth, a perception no one wanted to surface, the enforcers activate. They will mock. They will minimize. They will find a social flaw, your tone, your seriousness, your supposed arrogance, and make that the subject rather than the idea you introduced. You've seen this. Maybe you are this person sometimes and don't realize it. The idea dies. The discomfort dissolves. The herd settles back into its consensus. And the intelligent person learns slowly to stop introducing real ideas in that room. That is the training. And it works. Chapter 3. Why Mediocrity Needs a Target. Here's the part that stings. This is not simply about groups protecting themselves from disruption. There is something more personal happening, more psychological. Mediocrity, and I am using this word with clinical precision, not contempt, is not just an absence of intelligence. It is a relationship with intelligence. Specifically, a relationship defined by unresolved comparison. The mediocre mind is not blank. It is aware. Aware, dimly and uncomfortably, that there are those who see more clearly, think more deeply, feel more precisely. And this awareness is not neutral. It generates something. Something that needs to go somewhere. Psychologists call this social comparison theory, the tendency to define our sense of self-worth through comparison with others. But Schopenhauer would say it goes even deeper. It is the will asserting itself, refusing to accept a hierarchy in which it sits below someone else. And so the mediocre mind does something elegant and terrible. It doesn't work to rise. It works to lower. This is the distinction that most people miss. The energy is not spent on development. It is spent on discrediting. And intelligent people are the perfect target for this project. Why? Because intelligent people are often easy to paint as arrogant. They are often poor at social performance. They forget to laugh at the right moment. They correct people without softening it. They don't read the room the way a socially fluid person would. They leave openings. And the mediocre mind, which is very often socially sophisticated, even if not intellectually, exploits those openings. He thinks he's better than everyone. She's smart but has no emotional intelligence. He's book smart but not people smart. These are the sentences. You've heard them, perhaps about yourself. And here is what they actually mean. You threaten something in me, and I need to neutralize it before it becomes visible to others. The target is not random. The target is the one who, by existing clearly, makes the absence of clarity impossible to ignore. Chapter 4. The weapons they use now, let's get precise. Because knowing that this happens is useful. Knowing how it happens is power. The first weapon is social framing. The intelligent person is not attacked on intellectual grounds. That would be too risky, too likely to fail. Instead, they are attacked on social grounds. You're too intense. You make people uncomfortable. You need to learn how to read the room. The argument is never you're wrong. It's you're inappropriate. Because appropriateness is a social construct, and in a social construct, the majority holds the pen. The intelligent person can win every logical battle and still lose the social war. The second weapon is weaponized humility. You will notice that the people who most aggressively undermine high performers are often the ones performing the most humility. They don't attack directly. They ask questions designed to sow doubt. Are you sure you're not overthinking this? Maybe you're just not a team player? They wrap the knife in the language of concern. The third weapon is manufactured consensus. Before you arrive at the meeting, the conversation has already happened. Your ideas have already been pre-framed as complicated, impractical, or aggressive. By the time you speak, people are already prepared to hear something difficult to work with. You haven't said a word, and the room is already closed. And the fourth, most insidious weapon, the patience of mediocrity. The intelligent person wants to resolve conflict quickly because they see it clearly and want to move on. The mediocre mind is comfortable in prolonged ambiguity. It can sustain a cold war for years. It will outlast you in social attrition because it has nothing better to do with that energy. These are not accidents. They are not personality quirks. They are strategies, mostly unconscious but functional. And they work. They work because the intelligent person keeps assuming good faith. Chapter 5. Why intelligent people keep falling for it. This is where everything changes. If you've watched this far, you've probably recognized yourself in some of what I've described. Not just as the target, but maybe occasionally as someone who fell for it, who engaged, who defended, who tried earnestly to explain their reasoning to someone who had no interest in reasoning. Why does this keep happening? Here's the psychology. Intelligent people carry a specific vulnerability, a belief, usually internalized early, that clarity will be persuasive, that if you explain it well enough, if you provide enough evidence, if you demonstrate your point with enough precision, the other person will update their understanding. This belief is rational. In an ideal world, it would be correct. But it collides brutally with reality. Most social conflict is not about truth. It is about status. It is about threat. And no amount of clarity resolves a status conflict because the other person was never asking a question. They were asserting a position. Schopenhauer was clear about this. He wrote, "In the Art of Being Right, a forensic guide to rhetorical manipulation, that most arguments are not truth-seeking. They are dominance exercises. The goal is not to discover the better idea. The goal is to win, and to be seen winning. The intelligent person enters every argument as if it is the first type. The mediocre combatant is always playing the second game, and there is a deeper issue. Intelligent people often have a deep and genuinely painful desire to be understood, not praised, not worshipped, simply accurately perceived. To have their thoughts received as the thoughts they actually are. And this desire makes them stay in the room too long. It makes them explain one more time. It makes them give one more chance. It makes them believe against all evidence that this time the response will be different. It won't be different. Not because people are incapable of understanding, but because in that moment, understanding is not what they want. You are not failing to communicate. You are succeeding at communicating with someone who does not want to receive it. Chapter 6. Here's what most people miss. Everything I've described so far can be read as a story about bad people targeting good people. And if you read it that way, you will remain stuck. Because you will keep evaluating these situations person by person, instance by instance, hoping to find the exception, the one environment where this won't happen. It will keep happening. Because this is not about personalities. It is about structures. Every social system, a company, a family, a friendship group, a culture has a set point, a default level of honesty, depth, complexity, and self-examination that it is comfortable with. And when someone enters the system whose natural operating level exceeds the set point, the system responds, not with malice, with homeostasis like a thermostat. The room gets too warm, the cooling activates. The intelligent person raises the temperature of a conversation, the cooling activates. The system does not ask whether the warmth was beneficial, it just restores the default. This reframe changes what you do with the information. If it's personal, you try to fix relationships. You explain yourself. You soften yourself. You make yourself smaller and wonder why you still feel wrong. If it's structural, you make different decisions. You stop auditing yourself in the hope that being less threatening will make things easier. You start evaluating environments for their set points before you invest. You stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "Is this a system that can hold what I carry?" Schopenhauer's answer ultimately was radical and uncomfortable. Most systems cannot. Most rooms are not built for the kind of intelligence that sees clearly and refuses to pretend otherwise. And the response to that is not to hate the rooms. It is to stop being surprised when the rooms respond as rooms do. You don't fix a thermostat by being warmer. You find a room with a different setting. Schopenhauer was not a hopeful man. He did not promise that the right mindset would make social life comfortable for the intelligent person. He did not offer a five-step system. What he offered was something harder and more valuable: clear sight. He saw that the world is run, mostly, at the social level, not by the most intelligent, but by the most willful, the ones most committed to the group's comfort, the ones who know instinctively how to consolidate consensus and neutralize disruption. This is its own form of intelligence, but it is not the form that produces clear thinking, honest work, or genuine advancement. He also saw, and this matters, that the intelligent person's suffering in social environments is not evidence of their failure. It is evidence of the mismatch. A precision instrument placed in an environment that requires bluntness will look wrong there. It will be treated as excessive, complicated, difficult. That is not a verdict on the instrument. What do you do with this? You stop performing smallness in the hope of being accepted. You stop offering clarity to systems that have decided clarity is inconvenient. You stop investing your most precise thoughts in rooms that will use them as evidence against you. You become, instead, selective, strategic, not in a cold or contemptuous way, but in the way that someone who has learned finally to respect their own perception does. You learn to read the set point of a room before you speak. You learn to distinguish between genuine curiosity and the simulation of curiosity. You learn when engagement is worth it, and when silence or departure is the more intelligent response. This is not retreat. This is calibration. Schopenhauer spent decades in relative solitude, writing works that were largely ignored during his lifetime. He was not accepted by the academic establishment of his era. He was too clear, too uncomfortable, too unwilling to soften his observations for an audience that preferred comfortable complexity to uncomfortable precision, and then eventually the world caught up. It usually does, not fast enough to feel good about, but clearly enough, in retrospect, to make the precision worth keeping. If this reached something in you, something you've known but never had language for, comment one word. Seen, not because it's a trend, because naming a pattern is the first step to no longer being trapped by it. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who has been made to feel wrong for seeing clearly, send this to them. Sometimes the most useful thing you can give a person is the structure behind their experience. I'll see you in the next one.